about it, Dave? Another episode of ATL on Fire?
Yep.
Woo! Well, unfortunately, Jason Longshore could not make it, but it might have been a blessing in disguise because my internet connection literally was dropping off before all this started.
Is it possible that he jinxed us?
No, I don't think
He's too nice for that.
He's too nice. He's too nice.
Something got us because we've had all kinds of problems we don't usually have anyway.
Yeah, it's been run pretty smoothly so far, but so that was good to go through that.
I have to say, this is my moment to give you credit, Mikey Dobbs, because you are obviously the man behind the curtain. It all comes because of Mikey Dobbs. So
I appreciate
kudos
that.
to you.
And then I come in and ruin everything. So I'm just going to click some buttons. Y'all just go ahead
All right.
with what y'all
Carmen's
are doing.
clicking buttons. It's going to be great.
And then it's under analytics there. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we are going to do just kind of an audible right here on the agenda. We've still got a game to talk about. But before we do that, I want to just say thanks for everybody for your patience on joining the live cast here if you've made it. And we are enjoying a nice bottle of wine. Dave, you brought a cab.
Yep. It's Tree Fort Wines from Paso Robles. Those of you who are tuned to the podcast a lot will know that we've been pretty partial to the Paso Robles wines. They're a little bit less expensive than the Napa, but still nice. This is a Cabernet, Tree Fort. Very nice.
Yeah. And Dave, I got a little wild today. I decided to do another giveaway for ATL on Fire.
Nice. The fans are going to appreciate that, Mikey Dobbs.
I think so too. Yeah, it's the least we can do with the technical difficulties for Elliot and the people I know have been a part of the if you hit analytics there, you can see, we're down again. Awesome. Could be the internet. You never know.
Okay. All right.
My Comcast is real dicey. So, anyway, we're recording, so we're just going to get this out on the
Just
the
keep
web.
rolling.
Keep
Sometimes this show must go on, Mikey Dobbs.
So, yeah, we did a giveaway, another MLS gift card for $50. All you got to do is click the link that I posted on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to get some more subscribers here so that we can get heckled for our inability.
Yeah, you have to be a
live cast.
subscriber to be eligible, right?
Yeah, you do. So we appreciate the subscriptions. And, outside of that, Dave, what else you got to jump into? You want to get into?
It's kind of like the season, Mikey Dobbs.
Yeah.
Maybe, as goes Atlanta United, so goes the ATL on Fire podcast.
Man. I got the lighting all set up just right tonight. I felt it was feeling good.
Well, I was going to start with the highlights, but we may or may not have internet.
Well, let's give it. Let's give it a go.
I think we got internet. We
Yeah,
got internet.
it's probably something streaming that I hit.
All right.
Carmen's over there clicking buttons.
I don't see. Can't trust me. Don't trust me over here.
Do you want to start, Mikey Dobbs, by talking about the first goal that
the first
Sosa scores?
The first goal was by Sosa where the ball comes out. There's kind of three Atlanta United players kind of scrambling to see who's going to pick it up. But Sosa kind of does a little bit of a wind-up, and you're like, he's not going to put that in. It's going to go over the post, like you said, and he just cracks a beautiful shot in the top upper 90 near post, and his first Atlanta United goal. So we can take a look here at how it goes down.
Lennon crosses it, Wiley challenges for it, comes back out. It looks like it's going to be the Keystone Cops, but they let Sosa have it, and kablam, right? I mean, rocket in the top 90. The thing that's so impressive about that is he's moving back towards our own goal, right? And so, as you know, that is a ridiculously hard ball to strike and keep under. You got to figure he's blazing it over from there, right?
Yeah, you figure you got to be leaning back there. I don't know how he kept it down.
Impossible.
We needed that, but then
great start.
And
maybe we should back up and say, I read Doug Roberson's article in the AJC, and he was interviewing Pineda or discussing with Pineda, and Pineda, this was prior to this Columbus Crew game on Sunday, and Pineda was saying that he was close to having our ideal lineup. And so when I saw the lineup, I nearly fell on the floor. So those of you who will remember the previous game, we started with 4 in the back, 1 in the center midfield, and 5 up front, not only all 4 Mama, but then Cisneros, right? And then in this game, we start with 5 in the back, 2 in the midfield, and only 3 up front. And how is that close to knowing your starting lineup? There's 2 completely different formations. What do you feel about that?
Again, it is the continual inconsistency. We are well beyond the halfway point of the year. We are in desperation mode to get a win at every single turn. And yet again, he changes up the formation. 5 in the back. And who's in the middle? The guy who, in my mind, has the least credibility to play, Amar Sedic.
Our favorite player,
When you have so many other options, you can put in a talented player like Moreno. You can have a more defensive posture with Ibarra. Right next to Sosa. Josetu. I just don't get it. I think our live stream is gone, Carmen. We can just kind of kiss that goodbye. I think, unfortunately, we will reboot and just use the recording. I am just shocked. I only read the headline from the AJC article that you had sent, and it's just, again, why, it's not the team. It's not the roster. It is really simply putting this team in the best position to play cohesively. I mean, you can tinker a little bit.
Yeah.
But at this point in the season, like, the formation should be the same.
It's one thing to take attacker off and play with another center midfielder on the road. That makes some sort of sense. Columbus is a good team. You're on the road, whatever. But to go from 4-1-5 to 5-2-3. I mean, this is a wholesale change.
Yeah.
Right, including changing the way you're defending in the back with 5 versus 4, changing the way you have a midfield set up with 2 versus 1. I mean, it's just night and day. So it strikes me as a coach who has no idea what the best lineup is.
So, let me play devil's advocate for a second, right?
Okay.
So for the viewers of this game, and I will agree, I felt like the team did look very good. They looked comfortable the first half. I'm talking about the first half.
Yeah.
They looked like they were winning it at half field, cycling it up to Almada and Araujo, and we're getting pressure.
What I was going to say is that, in my opinion, if you're going to be incredibly committed to the outside backs bombing forward and getting so high up the field, which, if there's one thing that's been consistent about Pineda the whole year, is outside back so far high up the field. And all these commentators, we've seen it on the national broadcast with Twellerman, you've seen it on the Fox FS1 broadcast with Stuart Holden, right? They're all talking about how the outside backs are so high up the field. Yeah. So it is very obvious. Everybody knows that. So he's committed to that. What I would say is, I think that's not good because, as we've talked about it, those are not the guys we want. But anyway, in any case, if you're going to be committed to that, we look much, much better with 3 behind that and a 5 back. Yeah. Because when they're bombing forward, we're not left with 2 in the back. And in this case, with 5 in the back and 2 in the midfield, what happens is, if you go to 138 in the highlight package, you'll see what you can do for the first time. So Columbus is trying to play out of the back. And one of the things you'll see is that Sosa is there, right? Sejdic is going to be pressuring the ball, coming back on it. Almada is coming in from one side. Araujo is coming in from the other side. And the reason why they have time to do that, Mikey Dobbs, is because you can't see it in this clip. They're off the picture, but they have it marked up in the back. Because right now, if Columbus had an easy outlet, he would play it. Yeah. And as you're going to see from this, he cannot play that. He tries to play short to Nogby, and he gives the ball away, which, as you see, leads immediately to a one-on-one inside the 18 for us. So play the clip. Right, Almada gets it. He plays it through to Wiley. Wiley centers it back, and they almost score an own goal. Right, but that's one pass, Mikey Dobbs, to get into the box and get a one-on-one.
Yeah. So, okay, let me take a pause.
And I'm going to even point out that on this play, would you rather have that ball been to Wiley or would you rather it been to Moreno?
Yeah, Moreno for sure.
Because Moreno in that spot, he can beat the guy and finish.
Yeah. So let me take a pause though and just talk about the formation, right? So. Yep. Assuming Pineda now with the article, the interview he had with Doug Roberson from the AJC, he says he's found his formation, he's found his players.
Yep.
Or at least his formation. Was it players or formation?
He said that he found his ideal team, I think. It was a word that was combined. It was formation and players.
Okay. So now we're assuming maybe he's switching to a 5 in the back. And he's committed to your point of bombing the wingbacks up and playing defensively with 3 in the middle. Mm-hmm. To your point, that is not going to yield as many goals, right, as maybe a 4 in the back that could be accomplishing the same thing with different directives.
Well, I was going to argue that for this team, it will yield more goals because we finally can win the ball further up the field. I would say if you could play with 4 and still have it matched up, you can do even better because then you have a further attacking player, but that's never going to happen under his system. So I would say for sure 5 in the back for us, ironically, is going to yield more goals than 4 in the back.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I felt like we looked good the first half because we were winning it at that midfield point and in that replay, right, recycling it up to good players. So, Almada immediately got it and made a great pass. It led to what should have been a goal. Very unlucky. So, what went wrong?
Well, I'll show you. If you go, we'll just jump right around. We'll go to 305 in the highlight package, right? This is the first goal that we give up. And it doesn't matter whether you get, leave it right there or maybe a second further. Because you'll see, stop it, right? So what you'll see in this clip is Columbus has the ball around midfield. They're in possession. We are pretty, well back. I mean, Wiley has been way up the field, and he's trying to get back. But what's happened on this side, and I think Gutman does it way better than Parada. So Gutman on the left side, when Wiley is up the field, he just naturally in the back 3 assumes sort of a left back role. And it's probably because he's been a left back, so he naturally can go there, right? So in this clip, you'll see that it's Gutman right at the top of the picture, right over by the 18, marking their right forward, playing basically a left back. Right, so then it's Franco, Parata, and then the outside back on the right side is Lennon, who in this case is not bombed up the field. But it's still such poor defensively because you can't see in this clip, but Lennon's just run right back. And where has he run to, Mikey Dobbs? Who is he marking? Who's the closest player to him?
You tell me. I got bad eyes.
It's Parata, our own center back. He looks like I'm marking our own center back, right? And if you'll notice, there's a guy wide open on the bottom of the screen all the way out where the right back would normally be on our left flank, right? And who's that? It's Cucho, right? It's their best player, their leading scorer, right? So if you run all the way back from, if you're Lennon, why go hold Parata's hand and leave their best player wide open? Is he helping there?
Nope.
I mean, Carmen, do you think he can do anything there?
Yeah, there's 3 players. Unbelievable.
And so what you'll see is even though Columbus is going to make multiple passes, they're going to play a through ball, which Franco doesn't read that well, and they get, whatever, they get a cross on it. All of that is to say Lennon is so far from Cucho that he never can get back there, and Cucho gets a tap in on the back post. So play the clip. Columbus passing, they pass in the middle. It's Nogby, plays through, right? Look how open Cucho is, and he still can't get back there.
Yeah.
Right? And why? It's because his positioning right from the opening minute is the wrong thing. He just ran to the wrong spot.
And the whole time, Lennon wasn't even looking behind him. He didn't have his hips turned to see the danger behind him. He takes a glance over his left shoulder.
He takes a glance and then is like, oh.
Yeah, that's the classic. Yeah, you're not paying attention to the guy that you're in charge of there.
Well, so there's two possibilities, right? One is that Lennon is a truly terrible defender who has no natural instincts, or two, he's been told in the back three that we always need three in the middle, right? That's the danger area, which is what all these coaches say. Which is what I think is happening, because this is what I see all the time.
I think it's door number one, though. He's a terrible defender too.
He may be a terrible defender, but I think he's been coached to be there. Yeah. And so when you take a defender who I agree, I think he's not so great defensively, but then you put him in the wrong spot and you make it even worse. Yeah. So if you have a defender who is not naturally gifted, one-on-one defending, doesn't have great instincts, it's going to be worse. And so, for example, you've seen Gutman does have really good instincts, and he often will cover it. But even you can see he's been coached to come in. If you watch Gutman play on the left side, he kind of in and out, and in and out, and in and out, right? Because his natural instinct is to go where it's supposed to be, and he's being coached to come in, right?
Yeah.
So that's a problem, right? So even though they fixed it in this case where you don't have two in the back, they've still left that wide open on the flank because it's so compact.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really terrible. I was laughing because, does Caleb Porter really have to coach Cucho to be in that spot? Cucho's just like, hey, coach, I see it's open over there. I'm going to go over there, and they're not going to mark me. So, and you can see it actually if you go to the second goal that we gave up at 4:41, right? I mean, this one I find
so. This
really
one
ironic.
We go down 2-1.
Yeah, leave it right there. For wherever we are, 4:40. Because so Columbus Nagbe has the ball again right inside the center circle. And you can see the left winger on Columbus. He's literally pointing saying, see all that space? See where I can go? Why don't you play it down there? Now, Columbus doesn't actually get it out there right away. If he played it right there, we were in big trouble. It takes a long time to get it out there. But when he finally gets it out there, Lennon finally realizes, oh, the guy's wide open, and he's trying to recover to that space. And so what happens is you take Lennon, who's not a good defender to begin with, and now he's running out to get out there, and what's going to happen is he dives in and just gets beat. Yeah. And then once he gets beat, Purata does the right thing and come over, but again, he's scrambling to come over because Lennon not just got beat, I mean, he got totally beat where he was on the ground and the guy was running by. So then Purata's got to scramble out there, and when he scrambles flying out there, he's not so good anymore. He dives in, the second guy gets beat, and now we're in big trouble. We give up a goal.
Let's see it. Who's this, Sands?
So they play it out wide. Here comes Lennon flying out. He gets beat. Purata has to come out. He gets beat. Right? And now everybody's scrambling, and Cucho again is wide open in the box. Yeah. It's a great goal. I mean, he finishes it beautifully, but there's the problem.
The problem was that slide. That was pretty bad.
That was horrible.
Right? That slide was terrible.
Now, if you let it go, not to, I think, the second replay, but the third replay, just let it keep playing, you'll see, I think, the other problem, which is, in my opinion, Rios Novos should have saved this. Yeah, because you'll see one more angle.
Right in his hands, basically.
Well, you'll see on this angle, the reverse angle, which I think is the third one, right? It actually hits his hand.
Yeah, sure does.
It hits his hand.
Could you imagine?
I think here is actually, here's the one where we could see it the most. There.
No.
If he was, say, like 6 inches taller, do you think that would make a difference, Dave?
So if you hit it off your hand into the side netting, so he got a hand onto it, and he changed the trajectory that was going straight into the goal, into the side netting. So that means that if he's 2 inches more, that hits the post or goes wide for sure.
What's the height of most starters in MLS that play goalkeeper?
Most of the starters are 6'3" or 6'4".
That's right. So I think that would have been a save.
He's 5'10" on a good day.
Anybody else other than...
So 5-6 inches... You would say, so 5-6 inches goes from hitting his fingers and going into the side corner to hitting the heel of his hand and going punched out.
For sure.
That's the difference.
It's a great observation.
Right?
You heard it here on ATL on Fire. Pineda.
So,
sorry. Pineda's got to go.
Yeah. So what I would say is, in that particular clip, we're playing 3 in the back again, but it only helps to play 3 in the back if it allows you to match up, right? And in that case, there's a guy literally out wide pointing, saying, I'm open, and that space is open, right? And that means they're not matched up.
So, Dave, we keep pointing out why we lost the game.
Yeah.
But all the people out there want to kind of point this on a terrible referee, which I agree the referee was awful, but that's nothing new.
247, Carmen, you can go.
The referee in the last game was terrible. Maybe not quite as bad as this one, but I don't think the ref was the difference maker on us coming away with the draw here. I mean, yes, he was, because he took away a goal, but it was in our hands to win this game, I think, is my point.
Maybe it's 2 seconds before that.
Right.
I think this
is a terrible refereeing job. First, to just not let it go to VAR to begin with. No reason to blow the whistle. If you're unsure, let it get judged.
Now, they did get to VAR eventually, even though he kind of blew the whistle.
No, I thought once you blow the whistle, it's dead, right?
But they reviewed this play.
Did they?
Yeah. Which is shocking to me, because once you see the review. So, Mikey Dobbs, you want to describe what happens?
Well, the ball comes across.
It's a corner.
And Sosa is on the back post. I forget who is in front of him, but there's another defender in between the two, Sosa and the other Atlanta United player. It looks like the Columbus player kind of leans into the other Atlanta United player. Sosa has a very gentle hand on that defender's back.
Yep.
I mean, you can see from the video, it's a very gentle hand, just as a, hey, I see that you're here. It was zero push. And then, Sosa is able to get back and use the separation of space, which was created by the Columbus player, not by a push. And basically,
if that's a push not inside the 18, then there should be a penalty kick on every single corner kick. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000% an Atlanta United goal. And if you're going to use VAR in this way, and you have people who think they know soccer and can't get that right, and me, I'm all, had it been the other way around, I will call it.
If you're that's what I was going to say. If you're a longtime podcast listener, you'll know that we're not the first to be homers and be like, oh, everything's a bad refereeing and we deserve goals or whatever. Often we'll say that maybe we were fortunate, right? Yeah. But here we just got jobbed.
Yeah, totally jobbed. But I mean, how can you have people that, as a profession, right, they can't see what you and I are seeing? How does that happen? Who are that's not Dickerson per se, because all these referees that.
Well, it's funny, Dickerson is just reacting to the guy flailing and going down, right? Which is just terrible refereeing, right? You have to be able to see something. And if you don't really see something, you let it go, and then you have VAR as a backup, right? So
but I feel like
what's he reacting to?
I feel like the VAR upstairs has so much influence on what the central referee ultimately decides. Did he go to the monitor on this?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So that's why. So
they did pause play, though, to suggest that it was under review.
But I always feel like the VAR suggests for the head referee to go to the monitor if they feel like it's worth reviewing.
Yeah.
If not, it's like the decision is actually coming from the box, not the head referee upset. They're like, no, it's definitely a foul, right? So that's what they should be doing to move it fast, right? Like, hey, we think maybe this wasn't a foul. Why don't you go to the monitor and check it out? Clearly, the people upstairs didn't tell Dickerson that. That's how it works.
Yeah. And I would say that the language here is working against you, right? Because the VAR is clear and obvious difference. And you could say, all right, maybe he touched him a little bit. It's like when they call penalty kicks. They're never going to reverse the call, whatever it is, penalty kick or no penalty kick. If there is, if they call a penalty kick, if there's any contact at all, even if it shouldn't have been a penalty kick, if it was called a penalty kick, they're never going to reverse it, because once there's a little contact, it's not clear and obvious that it's a bad call, and they're never going to reverse it.
I hear what you're saying.
Instead of trying to get the call right, they're trying to say, was it a clear and obvious error?
Right. And that's why I'm saying, the language is not working against me, because I think as somebody who is up in the booth that should understand what clear and obvious means, that was clear and obviously not enough push or contact. Because to your point, then every single corner kick would be a foul because everybody's pushing a little bit. And that was the lightest push out of all situations on a corner kick. And like Sosa was literally just like his arm was almost like sliding off of him, not even pushing.
One thing I'll say is that in this game and in the last 2 or 3 games, offensively, our corner kicks have been excellent. We gave supposedly if Pineda is still letting the assistant coaches rule the free kicks and whatever, we gave them a hard time early in the year. We said both offensively and defensively that it was terrible. The last few games, offensively, it's been terrific. And you could see in this game, it was a double pick. So Peralta and Franco are both up. They're both going through the middle, and they're clearing people out. And that's why Sosa just standing there heading the ball. Yeah. He could have scored twice in this game. Right. And then ultimately we do, of course, score, which we'll get to in a minute. Peralta scores off a header. Right. And again, it's working. So that we're getting great chances. When you see 3 chances in one game on 3 corner kicks, that means it's working.
Yep.
But here's the but.
So you're saying,
go ahead.
So let's just take, before you get to the but,
sure.
What you're saying is Pineda may have found something that's better than what was working before. It might not be the perfect solution, but maybe 5 in the back, if he's hell-bent.
Going back to formation,
Going back to formation, he's hell-bent on 5 in the back and pushing the wing-backs forward, that if he's going to go with that what we saw here is working better. Would you agree with that?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we have played, I'd have to go back through my notes, but we have played 5 in the back. This is the second or third time.
There's been 3 or 4
in the
times.
last few weeks he's done it, and it hasn't really worked that well because again, you would think, okay, when you go to 5 in the back, it would be the same. But we've been at 5 in the back with only 1 in the midfield.
Yeah.
And you're like, I think Pineda actually, I mean, he's known as being a tactician, right? And I think that what he's doing is absolutely trying to maximize our team by having the exact right tactics for the other team. There are other coaches in Europe who do this, probably Tuchel being a really good example at Chelsea. I think often will match his tactics too much to the individual game.
Did you just say Tuchel?
Isn't that his name?
Thomas Tuchel.
Tuchel? I'm sorry. My German, apologies, my German's terrible.
Tomato.
Yeah, well, it shows you my affection for Chelsea.
Hey. Always look high.
Okay.
Did you see that between him and Conte?
Yeah.
Where they shook hands, and Tuchel was like,
right. Tuchel,
look me in the eye.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Handbags at 10 bases. But what I was going to say is he's a tinkerer, right? Yeah. So what's interesting is it's a very fine line between matching your tactics for the game and actually becoming a tinkerer. Like the other one who does it a lot is Emery, who was actually the old Arsenal coach for a little while and is now the coach in Spain. He's both of those guys really, really good at cup runs, because in cup runs, the team goes up and down and whatever. You have a 1 or 2 game matchup where you got to win. And there's sometimes when you match the tactics perfectly, right, then, it can work, right? But ultimately in a league, it doesn't work. You cannot have your team constantly change this and that, whatever. Yeah. Maybe there's a team that could do it, but for the most part, you want your team just playing the way they know how to play, getting comfortable and playing optimal. For example, Tata is a super example of this. When he came in MLS, it was known that, okay, you do your best formation, and then you go on the road, you park the bus. And Tata was like, we're going to play the same dang way on the road as we played at home. And the year that we won the title in 2018, we had one of the best away records in the history of MLS, because he was just like, I'm not changing anything. Yeah. We're just going to play the way we're doing. So I think it's a long way of saying that Pineda right? He's such a tactical guy. I think he's in the tinkering mode. And he's trying to match everything perfectly because we're not playing well. And instead of saying, what's my best formation for this team, he's saying, what's the best for this game and individual matchup?
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So
you want to hear the but?
So he kind of got it right for this game because we are having high quality chances.
Yep.
But, Dave,
Well, what I was going to say is, for all the praise we give to him, or I think the assistant coaches, I mean, the reason why I'm giving the assistant coaches credit is at the beginning of the year, he said, I defer my free kicks and things to the assistant coaches. I don't know whether he's still doing that. I haven't heard anything about it since the beginning of the year. But if we go to 422 on the highlight package, Carmen, and freeze it there, you'll see that we have a defensive free kick. One thing that you were asking me is, all right, we look like we're better defensively on corners, and are we still zonal marking? And I think the answer is also they've improved. It's no longer a true zone. They're playing just Martinez, I think, and often Gutman or one other player, if Gutman's not in there, as zone, and then the rest of the guys are man marking. And that's working beautifully. Okay. Remember we talked about, you were like, what's your optimal? I said, my optimal is man marking with one or two zone, because sometimes somebody gets bumped off and you need to have that. Now we're doing it and we're no longer giving up goals, right? Here, we still haven't learned our lesson. So here's a free kick from, 15 yards outside the 18 for Columbus. It's on the right side. We're basically holding, one step inside the 18 or on the 18. It's a complete zonal marking. Okay, so it's the standard, which you see a lot now. The U.S. national team does this Berhalter, and we give up goals all the time.
What in the world are the guys doing up front on the top of the box near the ball, with one guy free on the back post and one guy at top of the arc?
Yeah, so one of the things you'll notice is on the very back post, there are two, because of the way it's zoned, there are two Columbus players and only one defender, okay? It's 2v1. God bless. You know who one of those is?
Probably Ochoa.
It's, Cucho.
Cucho
Hernandez, right? Their leading scorer and best player. We're going to mark him, leave him open. So the guy who's most wide open on the back post is their leading scorer and best player.
Why do we have a two-man wall from that far out?
I don't think we need a wall at all there. Yeah. Even if you have a wall, though, you still have to have it marked up. You can't just be like...
Why? Yeah, why do we have a wall there?
I don't know.
You've got what's his name on the far post, their best scorer.
Cucho.
And whoever the guy in the pink cleats is, who's free at the top of the arc.
Yeah, well, so what you'll see on this free kick is clearly Caleb Porter and Columbus knows that we do this on our things, because what's going to happen is Cucho could have run free into goal, but that's not their play. He sort of gives the shoulder like he's going to go. He cuts back. He comes short. And because it's zonal marking, there's nobody responsible for going with him. And he's going to end up, Mikey Dobbs, a step outside the 18 with nobody on him. They're going to pass it short to him. Now, God bless, thankfully, he shanks it straight up in the air and then bicycle kicks it. Yeah. But look at how open he is. Play the clip.
Yep, by design.
I mean, look at how open he gets.
Ugh.
So that's a problem.
That's a real problem. So how do you take that from the training field to the game, right? So you're like, hey, wherever the free kick is, right, on certain zones of the field, right, you instruct the team on whether there's a wall or no wall. You don't let Rocco influence whether there's a two-man wall, right? Do you? Is that Rocco's call there?
Usually it's the goalkeeper's call. Now, you might say, I mean, who knows whether that's true here or not, but almost always it's the goalkeeper's call.
Okay.
And if it's Rocco, again, maybe it's a thing of, he's a little worried about scrambling over at the near post because he's too short. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's just speculation, and maybe we're just adding insult to injury.
No, I know, but, I would imagine that there's directives from, the set piece coach, right? That says, hey, when the ball is generally in this area and it's this far out, no need for a wall. Make sure we are man on man, and we're confident the goalkeeper can come out and get it, right, if it's a dangerous cross, right?
And I have to say, Conti, Jason Longshore's radio partner, Mike Conti, actually, I think he tweeted out the actual stats, right? Expected goals. We outshot them. We had out possession by a little outshot them. But anyway, our expected goals were considerably more. It was like 2 to like 0.75 or something. And he was like, look at that. One of the things you have to realize, Room, the Columbus goalkeeper, right? Don't ask me to truly pronounce his name. I think it's a V.
Don't do it. Don't
he's
even
Dutch.
try.
He's Dutch.
You couldn't get Thomas Tuchel right. Don't go for it. Don't go for it.
Sorry, I apologize. But anyway, he's fantastic.
Okay.
And the number of saves that he made, including we showed before, the one that was Wiley hit and it was almost an own goal, he gets a finger on that and touches that into the post. There was also one in the opening moments of the game that Gutman, of all people, gets free in the box and hits it, and he pokes it with 3 fingers into the post.
That should have been another Gutman goal.
Yeah.
It was it was going far
so
post.
If you switch the goalkeepers, Mikey Dobbs, that's 2 goals we score.
Yeah.
Right? And it was 1 goal that we should have saved. So I would argue just the height of the goalkeeping in this game probably was a 3-goal difference.
Yeah. And I don't know if you looked at the link I sent, which was comparing like Shuttleworth, Guzan, and
I did,
and Rocco. I mean, it is not good when it comes to his stats. It did not look good.
No. Yeah, he's giving up way more goals and for just as many or fewer chances.
Winning percentage is drastic. It's like Brad Guzan's like 65% and his is like 23% winning percentage.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, those stats are what they are.
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference.
And it eventually feeds back into your defenders, as I said.
It's a
when you don't have confidence in your goalkeeper, you do crazy things defensively.
Yeah. So what else do you want to talk about in the Columbus game? Anything?
There's really only one other thing that I have, which is I'm going to go 0 for 3 here. But Mosquera, do you know his name? It's the new guy.
Yeah, he's from Colombia.
Yeah, from Colombia, the winger.
He's from Medellin, I think.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness, he's pacey.
He's pacey. What do you think of him, though?
Well, he should have scored. He was only barely offside. He finished it well.
Yeah, he was offside, but
it's definitely offside.
Definitely offside, but it was a good clinical finish.
But he looks like a guy who can play, and B, I think one of the things that we've been missing off the bench is a guy with pace for slow defenders or tired defenders, I would argue, right, that can really change the game, a la Tito Villalba.
I was about to say Villalba, yeah. So he can be that 75-minute sub that's like, uh-oh.
And you're a defender. You've played 75 minutes chasing him around Moreno or Araujo or Almada, and then you're like, oh, God. Yeah. Really? Yeah. Do I have to mark that guy too?
So, I mean, Dave, the season's a wrap.
So 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. The season's a wrap. I'm not one to hope for miracles at this point. We're not going to win 7 games out of the remaining 8.
We have 8 games left, and we need to win 6.
Okay. Is there anybody
to get to the magical number that's been good enough in previous years to be above the playoff round?
So I'm not that wishful thinking that that's going to happen given the team's form. So what do you do as a coach, especially when, let's say, we lose the next game? What do you do as a front office if we lose the next game? Like, and by the way, who is our front office? Bocanegra?
Yeah, we were going to ask Jason tonight about who is the replacement for Eels.
It's very worrisome that we have no leadership beyond a technical director, really, and a guy who knows how to run the finances. Like, there's nobody who's like the brains, like Darren Eels, that's like the adult in the room.
Well, Bocanegra is supposed to be the guy in charge of player, selection. I mean, Eels had a huge role in that, which is unusual because he's supposed to be the club manager kind of thing.
Right, but who's the person that's looking at Pineda? Pineda doesn't report to Bocanegra. who's holding Pineda accountable? No one right now. Arthur Blank doesn't know enough to know, unless he's listening to our podcast, to know that like he should be questioning other than results. Obviously, I mean, Arthur Blank knows it's a results-driven business, and Pineda's record is just not good at this point.
It's not good.
It's not good. I mean,
maybe Carmen can pull up the standings while we're discussing this, but
I don't know. I'm starting to sweat, Dave. I mean,
oh no! It's a podcast meltdown.
We're literally.
What's the opposite of he's on fire?
One of the worst teams in MLS, and
he's on fire and he's sweating, and maybe going down.
With the team that we have, it's just absolutely crazy that we are where we are in the table.
Agreed.
I've said it from the get-go. I'm like, well, of course we're going to make the playoffs. The talent on this roster is too good not to.
Of course.
And yet Pineda has found a way for us to be this shitty.
And I have to say, not only did we have the talent, but when we had the injuries, the club did a really good job, right? We got Cisneros, who's more than serviceable as a backup.
They got Gudiño. Or what's his name? The Mexican international.
Oh, yes.
That's his name, the keeper.
Gudiño.
Yeah, it's Gudiño.
Yeah, right. And as a backup goalkeeper, when Guzan went down, they got Peralta as a backup when Robinson went down.
Great. I think Peralta.
Certainly serviceable.
Certainly a great compliment to Franco, who has just been the poor guy, just left there all season trying to deal with whatever, is shuffling around next to him.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What I've said is that you don't replace the coach unless you really feel like
you have
the wins above replacement, right? So you have a guy who's going to be a serious upgrade. One thing I'll say...
Dave, would you give up your research at Emory to take the job?
I don't even think that I have to be the coach, right? Because all you need is somebody whispering in the air being like, okay, here's the formation and here's the problem. I could be a consultant.
It's not a bad idea. I'm going to maybe... Who do we reach out to here? I don't know.
I was hoping, one of the things when Jason Longshore comes on the podcast, I wanted to have an in-depth discussion with him about what I think is the thing, which is the outside backs being so advanced up the field.
Yeah.
And, not to say that Jason's going to have any influence on Pineda, but he's at least in the circle, right? He's in the room where it happened. So, I don't know whether if we could get him to see it, I'd love to get his perspective on what he's seeing as a commentator. I don't know whether if he says some things or whatever, it could have an influence.
Yeah.
I don't know. We need a line to Pineda, a back door, if you will.
Yeah.
You're good at.
Yeah, I'm...
Maybe you can get us a back line to Pineda, no?
I'm going to do what I can do.
Make it do what it do.
So I would say, look, at this point, you don't make a decision on Pineda until you at least give him a chance to make the playoffs or not. If he doesn't make the playoffs, as soon as he clinches not making the playoffs, if that happens... Yep. And I'm still rooting for us to make the playoffs.
I am too. It's just not realistic.
Then I think you have to be looking. Does that mean you change Pineda 100%? No, I would say if I were the general manager, I would be definitely looking to change him, but only if I can pull the trigger on something that I know about. Yeah. Is there a chance that Pineda in year 2 gets better or whatever? Maybe. To me, I think... it doesn't seem that way because, sometimes there's a sign. My beloved Manchester United, right? We hire Ten Hag and, he comes out with the ultimate dud, right? He loses 2 games to mediocre sides right off the bat, right? And people are calling for his head, right? And he, I think, made some quotes that suggested that, clearly the problem for Manchester United, as really every Manchester United fan has said, is that our defensive midfield is awful, right? We have nobody defends in the midfield, right? We've had Fred and McTominay, and they just don't get it done, right? And so everybody's known this, right? And other managers be like, it's not that big a deal, right? But it is that big a deal. But interesting is that Ten Hag, when he came in, he said the wrong things, which is he was like, well, we obviously want a defensive midfielder. That's a key spot that I've identified as a weakness. But then he said two things. One, he was going after Frankie de Jong, who's not really a defensive midfielder, who's more of a box-to-box kind of player. And then on top of all of that, he said, well, if we can't get people who we want, maybe we can, adapt or do something within, which I would try to do.
But not say it.
But, and he did. So what I was going to say is, from game 1 to game 2, he started Fred and McTominay, and then in game 2, he actually dropped Fred and he played Eriksson, who really is a ball, an attacking midfielder, right? God bless him for still being alive, so great for him. And so he made an adjustment there, right? But he still immediately went to the club and was like, I need the defensive midfielder, and they signed Casemiro. In the midweek from Real Madrid, who's one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. So right away, right, he's identified the problem.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see, so if you compare that, he made it in week 2. He had already made a change. By week 3, he had changed the defensive midfielder, signed a new defensive midfielder, and on top of all of that, changed the center back pairing. Yeah. So,
yeah, and to be fair, I will say all the major soccer pundits out there were like, Ten Hag needs time. You can't just fire the guy. That
you got to give people time. You can't be like 2 games out.
They're like, these are the same problems Man U has had for years that now you've got to give them a moment to sort out.
I'm usually like, you give a coach 3 years.
Yeah.
Right, which is a long time. You certainly give them 2, and as long as there's something building towards year 3, you give them a 3. The difference, I would say, is it depends on who you have, right? If you think you have a championship-winning side, right, and you're at the bottom of the table, then you have less of a leash.
Yeah. So, next year, if you're Boca Negra, since I'm just going to start looking to 2023 right now.
Okay.
Because
he's moving on.
Assuming we still have Almada.
Yeah, maybe. I think so, but maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I almost wish Almada would go somewhere else just for his own development. I do get a little sad for players like that there. That I immediately see he deserves. I can understand why he's saying he should be in Europe, because he should be. Yeah. He's being sucked back by the system right now, and by a shitty Atlanta United team. It does suck for a player like Almada to be caught in the system, and so I do hope Atlanta United does him right. If there is interest from a European team, that they do him right and don't selfishly put. I don't know. I'm conflicted. How do you feel about that? Like, as a fan of Atlanta United versus like a player like that.
With Pineda coming back, or let's say they make a move with a new coach.
He's at such a critical age in his development that this seems to be him leading Atlanta United by just whatever he learned in the Argentinian league.
Right.
He's learning. He's not learning a lot other than to use all the smart things he previously learned from his coach, like don't run into a dead end, pass the ball early. All the things that frustrated us when we watch Barco. Almada seems to have the right poise, the right.
Yeah, he makes those decisions.
He makes
really,
really good decisions, and if he sits around here for another year, I don't know if that's good for him.
Well, what I would say is, if you're a young player and you go to a club like Atlanta United, you have to be thinking 2 years, right? Not many are thinking one and done. Now, didn't. There's a lot of arguments that said that he never wanted to come here to begin with, so maybe he
didn't. Yeah, he didn't.
But I figure you got to get him for 2 years. If there's no changing in the coaching staff, then you feel like, maybe you want to move on. If we were to bring in a new coach, you would be like, look, give us another year and let's see.
Yeah, the biggest transfer in MLS history, by all accounts, everything I've heard from anybody who understands soccer looks at the guy as like, how's Almada playing? They're all like, he's really good. You know what I mean? Nobody's really criticizing Almada, and yet we are 13th.
But you don't get a transfer off that, sadly, right?
Right.
You get a transfer off of, these days you get a transfer off of analytics, right? And you would say, oh, analytics are the player. But in soccer, so much of analytics is the team, right? A great team that creates anything. I mean, there are players on Manchester City who clearly, and you can see it sometimes when they've left Manchester City, right in the tank. They're a product of that being an amazing team overall and an amazing coach who puts them in a position to win and do what they think. They have great numbers, right? So, analytics is not just an individual player.
So, Dave, you brought me to a good segue to a mini ATL on Fire trivia.
Dear podcast listeners, you got to admire Mikey Dobbs. Jason Longshore doesn't show up last minute. Does he have trivia ready? Yes, he does.
I do. So we're, a good way through the season. Who do you think has played the most minutes this year for Atlanta United? What player has gotten the most minutes?
Early on, it was definitely Moreno.
Yeah.
He was playing by far the most minutes, but he's gotten less recently. So I'm going to guess that Franco has passed him.
That is correct, Dave. He has 1,995 minutes for Atlanta United this season. He's got 23 starts. And, his passing percentage is also about 89%, by the way.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. So who has committed the most fouls for Atlanta United? Who's our biggest foul offender? This one I don't think you're going to get right. It's a tough one. I wouldn't have guessed.
Who's the biggest foul committer?
Carmen, do you have a guess at all?
I don't.
Could be Wiley.
You have no lifeline.
Yeah.
Is that your final answer?
I'm going to say Wiley.
It is Andrew Gutman.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, I would never have guessed that.
Me neither.
26 fouls for Andrew Gutman. And so who do you think has the most yellow cards?
There's a player who comes off the bench.
Yeah, but he's just not. But he's just
is
not.
Is it yellow cards per minute? Because then it's definitely Don Dwyer.
It would definitely be per minute. Yeah, but this isn't per minute. This
all right. Fair. Yellow cards. Then I'm gonna say it's probably Ibarra.
It is Andrew. Oh no, sorry. It is Luis Araujo.
Araujo, yeah,
he makes a lot of like silly, frustrating yellow cards.
Yeah,
like grabbing someone or doing like.
I would have probably said him second.
Some unnecessary foul. Who has the most shots on target?
Araujo might have the most shots, but most of them are not on target. The most shots on target. It's probably Almada or Cisneros. I'm going to go with Almada.
You should have gone with your first instinct, Luis Araujo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You wouldn't think I'd have the same guy as the answer twice in a row.
That is awfully sneaky of you.
All right, the fifth and final one is who's our most fouled player?
I still think it's got to be Moreno.
You're correct. There we go.
No, he doesn't play anymore.
Why don't they play him? We play Amar Sedek. I mean, seriously, if that's enough of a reason for me to be a Pineda out guy. It really is. Like, you want to see me go on fire, Carmen. Like, this is like, that guy doesn't deserve to be playing, period.
Especially because he's such a poor defender.
Oh, I pressed the wrong. What is that button?
Oh, I got it on a.
Oh,
you can hit it again though. Yeah. We're all messed up technically.
We are. My bad.
I'll do it for you, Carmen. He's heating up. He's on fire.
Thank you, Dave. Technical difficulties consume us this evening.
We'll get it together.
Please forgive us, dear podcast listeners.
I had the kids down here last night.
It's all gone off the rails.
6 of them. They were doing a podcast on like Bethany Hamilton and like. and shark bites. It was so awesome. I've got it. I'll show it to you after the podcast.
You mean we have competition?
We do. They're way better than us.
I was about to say they did much better technically. Who's their producer? I need to watch out for him.
Viv Vargas, look out.
Yeah, what I was going to say is Sedic doesn't defend well at all. His one-on-one defending is really poor. I mean, he seems like a kind of guy who's been tasked his whole career with being the focal point, being on the ball, moving the ball. He's never been asked to defend, so he doesn't know how to do it.
So that's why I'm wondering, why was he in there? So you said it, right? So you're not going to have another player in there with Sosa to be defensive. So what you're telling me is... I would too. Correct, right? So no, right? But Pineda has decided, no, I do not want another defensive player next to Sosa. I want somebody who's more offensive. Yet you have two players that are better by any means of somebody who knows how to look at the game, which is certainly Moreno. Josetu, I don't know if he was available.
Yeah, I think he's had some knock, but yeah.
Heineman, if he's even on the planet anymore, I don't know. No one tells us anything.
Way down.
But I would take all three of those over MR Sedic, and certainly Moreno, who would be the number one.
Sure.
If you're just going to be like, hey.
And maybe you could argue that, all right, well, you're saving a dynamic player who can beat players one-on-one for late, but he didn't even come off the bench. So that wasn't the solution. And if you're in a 2-2 draw, if you're going to, he brought Martinez off the bench, he brought, a few people off the bench. He brought our good friend Tom Dwyer off the bench, but no Moreno.
And another thing, look, I get it that Cisneros is maybe your guy. This is a must-win game. Josef Martinez is the face of the franchise still. I'm a naysayer on Josef. You've heard me say it in terms of like a lot of skepticism. But man, if there's a game to play him and be like, this is your chance to get a goal and show me what you got. Why don't you put the team out there to win?
Here's my argument, though. There's a lot of people out there that Josef is finished and we should be playing Cisneros. Here's the thing, okay? For the whole season, when we weren't winning the ball up the field at all, right, because we only play two in the back, right, then you need a player like Cisneros because you saw, I can't remember which game it was, but we played him deep, and he made two moves all by himself and scored a goal, right? He's got pace. He can get in behind. He's not a good finisher. In this last game in Columbus, he had a really good header that was amazing save. It came back to him, and all he had to do was tap it in, and he shanked it. Anyway, but here's the thing, right? So if you are going to be on your heels and you're not really going to be winning the ball up the field, and you're going to need miracle goals, Cisneros is actually the better player, and you could see it. He scored more goals for this team because of the virtue of what we're doing. If you can actually recycle the ball, as we showed in this first clip,
that's what I said,
you need Martinez.
We were doing that in that formation. We were recycling it.
So I would argue, Mikey Dobbs.
Like, how about that ball that got played to Wiley? It was a Wiley?
Wiley.
Josef had been on. What if Josef was on that?
I would argue that if you're playing five in the back with two defensive midfielders, you have to play Josef Martinez. If you recycle the ball up top, he's much, much better going through the middle, right? If you are playing four in the back and they're only going to be two, and you're going to need these desperate goals or whatever, then you need Cisneros.
Yeah. But there's a multitude of reasons that you just pointed out that Josef should have been in that game from the get-go.
Yep.
But part of it is the season's on the line, Dave. The season's on the line. Yeah. This might be Josef's last season at Atlanta United. I don't know. But give the guy a chance to make a difference in the game that matters the most to this damn club.
Yeah.
And Pineda doesn't even do that. That's like zero trust. Like, to me, that was messed up, man. Messed up. You're going to give Ronaldo Cisneros the runway to save the season over Josef Martinez, who I've been critical of all season as like, hey, I like Cisneros, but not in that game, Dave. Not in that game.
But it speaks to Pineda, right? So there's often coaches who make gutsy calls and they work out. And then there are coaches who make quote unquote gutsy calls and they fall right on their face, right? And how do you know the difference? The difference, I would argue, is whether or not the coach knows that the team is trying to do something. So if you simply say Cisneros has scored the most goals for this team, and so therefore he should be the starter, then I think you're being naive, because you have to say Cisneros is fast, but when they're playing these little things in combinations or whatever, he's half the player even than Martinez, even if you say Martinez is known and good, right? So you have to know what you're doing, right? And, you have to know, are we trying to play through from the back, in which case you need Cisneros, or are we recycling the ball up the field, in which case you need Martinez? So the gutsy calls work out well when the player fits the tactics of the team, including there have been cases where people have benched star players and done really well, including Ten Hag, who didn't play Ronaldo, right? And if it fits what you're trying to do as a team, then it works.
Yeah. It just felt all wrong to me. I don't know. Season pivotal game, and Josef Martinez is heart's there. He's going to give everything to do it. Regardless of my opinion, whether he might obviously be, 1/3 of the player he was, I think he would have made a huge difference in that game.
One thing I think is almost laughable, right? You still hear it on all the commentators and things. And I'm not saying the commentators are getting it wrong, but you hear them saying, and it must be coming from Pineda, that we are trying to press. So if you are trying to press in the current form, you'd say Cisneros is, healthier, younger, maybe faster, right? Maybe he can press more. You see him tracking back. Martinez is not tracking back lately, whether that's the ACL or whether that's his attitude or whether whatever it is. He's just not, that's not what he's doing.
Yeah.
So you could argue that if you're going to press, then again, Cisneros is a better call, right? But here's the thing. This team, despite what they've looked like at times where they've tried to do things to press, right? The press has not worked all year, including even when you saw them win the ball here, right? That wasn't a press that worked, right? That was having five back and getting it matched up. And the reason why the press doesn't work, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, you hear coaches all the time, they talk about the press. I need this player for the press because they're a better presser. Yeah, sort of. What you need for a press is you need players matched up out of the back. If you take away the early outlet ball, then you can press. If you do not take away the early outlet ball, it don't matter how much. When we showed that clip, right, where we turned over the ball. Yeah, he had all day to look up.
He was looking up, but
if he had an option,
the back three had it covered, and he was like, "Uh-oh, I got to play it short." And then he makes a bad pass.
We were talking about this in the last game that we went to at the Benz. We were watching Parada, right? And Parada, because there was only ever two in the back, right? That game we played four in the back, and the two guys were still bombing up the front. And Parada was so nervous. He, if this were you and me, right, and maybe you won't hear me from the microphone, but he was like supposed to be marking you, and then he was backing up because he was so worried about getting beat with no help behind. Right. And so he never closed that down. And so in that game, the last game at home, they had their center forward available as an option every single time. And so Pineda's looking at it and saying, oh, the press is working or not. You're like, it's laughable. Yeah. You cannot press unless you have it matched up out of the back.
So one thing I will say that was really difficult about watching the Atlanta United game is I watched some great EPL games before that game. And the level of soccer is just so good, man. Like the Leeds United game the Newcastle Man City.
You don't want to make that bet this year? This is the year to bet on Leeds, right?
Yes, it certainly is.
They're doing really well, but two Americans.
Yeah, well, if you want to call Jesse Marsh an American, even though he's British, you can call him American.
No, two players who are American.
I know. But then you also have, what's his name? Harrison. Mm-hmm. He played
British.
He's British, but he played for NYFC, didn't he?
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of U.S. influence on that team.
Well, I say, again, a one-man match up, take away the option, allow you to press guy, Tyler Adams.
He played fabulous in that game.
He is a terrific. I keep telling people this.
The previous game, he looked a little dicey. Honestly,
his first game,
first
or something.
game, first or second game, but he looked great. He looked great in that game.
Yeah, and he's classy.
Brendan Aronson looking fantastic.
Yeah, when you have Tyler Adams being strategic about taking away things, and then you have a guy like Brendan Aronson who's just all action all the time, it works really well.
Yeah.
Right.
So who do you think is going to win the Premier League this year?
Well, Manchester City.
I agree. do you know why?
Holland.
Exactly.
We're not talking about the country.
I mean,
we're talking about
Newcastle.
Erling Holland.
Newcastle United was playing out of their shoes, right?
Yep.
Sir Maximum or whatever. I mean, I was like, man, he's just going at people. Miggy's having a great game.
Miggy scored.
Yeah, Miggy scored. Like it was awesome, right? Yeah. And yet,
good times.
I'm like, who's coming, baby? Erling Holland. and it could have been a couple more.
Has he scored in all 3 games so far? I think he has.
Yeah. He has. He scored in all 3.
And remember when we talked about it? I said, I was exaggerating, of course, but I said, like, he could score 60, right?
Dude, he with Kevin De Bruyne giving him service, he could score 45.
I mean, how much is Messi scoring in his prime years? He was scoring 40, 50 goals. I could see Erling Haaland in that mark for that team.
I'm scared bleepless when I watch that guy for competitors. I mean, that one where he shot at far post, it was definitely going in. The keeper made a fabulous save and got a hand on it, and it hit the post and went on. I mean, the guy is just, he's coming.
He's 2-footed. He's
coming for
big. He's fast. He can score with his head. He's technical.
And then he did that one. He broke through and just muscled off the defender and shot it, and the goalkeeper just did a fantastic job of slowing down and getting big on it and made a great save. But 95% of the time, that's an Erling Haaland goal. I mean,
I've said this, the best player in the world. I mean, 2 years ago when they were saying he could go, from Dortmund for like 150 million. If I were Manchester United, instead of getting Ronaldo, I would have mortgaged the house to get that guy.
And the fact that you got Kevin De Bruyne, who's arguably in the top 5 still of best players in the world,
and you know who
servicing Erling Haaland, it's frightening.
You know who Manchester City can thank, right? Daniel Levy, the Tottenham owner, who is stingy and crazy as all heck, right? Mm-hmm. He absolutely refused to sell them Harry Kane. Mm-hmm. So because he wanted 120 million for Harry Kane, and they were only offering him like 90 or 100. And so because, I mean, it started a snowball, right? Because Man City couldn't get Harry Kane, right? And he stayed, right? Then they were looking at Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. And then Cristiano Ronaldo was going to go to Man City. And then all the Manchester United old, alumni are like, you can't go to them. That's the noisy neighbors. Yeah. So they recruited him to Man United. So that's how he ended up at Man United. It was only because Harry Kane didn't go to Man City. And then because of all that happened, that's why they were available. They didn't play with a striker last year. They still won the title. Then that's why they get Erling Haaland this year.
And Harry Kane is a fabulous striker. I mean, he's smart, plays really well. But boy, he's no Erling Haaland.
Well, not only that, but Erling Haaland is 10 years younger than him. He's 20.
Might be the better investment.
Right? I mean, 20 years old.
Yeah. How is that possible? How he's like a beast.
He is.
He led the
2 years older than my child.
He scores over a goal a game in the Bundesliga. Basically, he scores over a goal a game in the Champions League. I mean,
so here's the deal, right? So how about a bet? Since you didn't want to take my Arsenal, you we're gonna rebet, right? So let's get
Leeds above Tottenham.
Yeah, I lost that one. So you're not gonna take my bet on Arsenal over Man United, which I think is a good choice on your part. So what do you think about PSG versus Man City in the UEFA Champions League final? Because look,
that's a good bet, but
it's a good bet. But like, who are we betting on here? Because Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, and then you got a bunch of other great players behind them. I mean, they are beating teams in League One by like 6-0. I mean, it's literally like rec league shit that's going on.
When I can't remember his name, which is killing me. But when you were talking about who should Man United get as coach, right. I said it was the guy from Lille, right, who had won the title over Paris Saint-Germain. His record is unbelievable. He left Lille because they were disputing or whatever, but he had them. They won the title. They won the Champions League. He went to Nice. He had a great year at Nice, and now, you know, Paris Saint-Germain, God bless them, they only wanted Zidane and they only wanted this fancy coach, and they couldn't get any of them. They still fired Pochettino, and then they're like, oh, we'll settle for him. And I'm like, you just hit the jackpot, because he is by far the best coach in France, one of the best coaches in the world. And suddenly Paris Saint-Germain, that was struggling in League to win 2-1, they're making it look like Mickey Mouse football. As you said, they're winning 7-0 this weekend.
Yeah.
And he's a really good coach.
So, but it's all about personalities at PSG.
Yeah, I was worried that, you know, could he handle all that? And there was a penalty kick controversy overall, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because winning cures all. Exactly. And he knows how to coach, and he gets them in the right spot. And when you're winning 7-0, nobody's unhappy.
Exactly. Those egomaniacs will be fine. But here's the deal. They'll might
each score 30. It's no problem.
But in League One they will. But what about in Champions League?
Yeah, well, he has no experience in the Champions League,
don't
really.
You think all those problems are going to resurface once there's a tough game against XYZ, Liverpool or whoever, you know?
Absolutely. But if there's ever a guy who can do it, because he's really good at organizing the team, and, you know, there's a parallel here. I mean, you hate to say Paris Saint-Germain, Atlanta United, but the parallel is that they have attacking players who are really good for the league, right? They have Mbappe and Neymar and Messi, right? We have Araujo and Moreno and Almada, and they're nowhere near those players. But for the league, I think they could be that dynamic. And so all you have to do is organize and get them up the field and match up and recycle the ball. And I didn't watch the game, but I saw some of the highlights. Yeah. They're just recycling the ball. He has them so organized. Messi and Neymar and Mbappe are on the ball all the time, and they're just like, it's a free-for-all.
Yeah. I think you need Josef in that equation, though.
Yeah, for sure.
What you just said. It needs to be Mama, because
I agree.
The two guys that, you know, can play the C-level version of what you're saying in the MLS, right? Are Araujo and Almada, right? Both of them, I mean, you know, Araujo obviously played for Lille. He can do it. Almada, I'm betting on. I mean, he can play those type of balls that you see a Messi or Neymar play to Mbappe, like these little chips that are like just on a dime. Like, both of those guys have that capability. I don't know.
Maybe Carmen can look up the PSG coach, what's his name, so we can give him some credit. Yeah. But could you imagine Araujo, who played for him, right? That was his previous coach.
So the Lille coach is now for PSG?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he was the Lille coach. He played the interim year.
So they just played Lille like last week, and they won like 6-1 or 7-1.
No, but he wasn't the Lille coach. He was Lille coach, and then he was Nice last year. Okay. He left Lille because of dispute with the owner. Yeah. They're like, which is nuts, right? The guy wins the title over Paris Saint-Germain. Right, I would have been like, you can have whatever, you can have the keys to the kingdom. But no, they gave him a hard time, and he's like, I'm out of here. Went to Nice, and Nice was like relegation zone, and they didn't like contend for the title, but they finished, I don't know, 7th or something like that. They did way, way better. And you're like, his record every single year is phenomenal. I'm like, I kept saying that's who Paris Saint-Germain should hire, and they did it by default. And sometimes fate intervenes, right? You know, he's the current Paris Saint-Germain head coach.
There he is.
Christophe Galtier. Yeah. He is, this guy can really coach.
Christophe Galtier.
He's my favorite.
He's your favorite?
He really is.
Okay.
I think...
So my least favorite right now is Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah. He's never been.
Well, not because he's not a good coach.
He is a good coach. I agree with you.
He's a great coach. I don't know that he's a good player coach, though. I don't. If I was a player, and I think every player would agree. I don't think they want to play for him. I don't know. Am I wrong on that, Dave? Like, I think he's. and this isn't me being a Christian Pulisic homer. I feel like he's done it to a lot of players where he will undermine the player by the greater good, which works, right? Like you won the Champions League. So great coach, can't deny it, right? But I think you can do it without undermining confidence of players, which I think he's done in spades, and not just Christian Pulisic, but many others. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly hard to know what's going on behind the scenes because you don't get to see things. But I agree with you. Clearly, from the players' reactions, he's not a player's coach. You could see that even last year with Lukaku and whatever. You know, they don't like playing for him. And part of that has to be, in addition to his man managing, right? Part of that also has to be his tinkering, right? Players don't like the tinkering, right? They like to have, you know, they like fairness. They like to have you earn your role. It doesn't mean you can't switch players, right? It's not, you can even define a role and say, look, you're going to be our super guy off the bench, right? They'll buy into that, right? If that's the role. But when they constantly don't know what it is and they're giving you a role and it's against this particular formation and you're going to do this today and this, and you're just like, let me play. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
and, you know, I'm a tactician, right? So I love all that. But as a coach, I know that at the end of the day, you got to get the tactics right. But then at a certain level, you have to say, let them play.
Yeah. It seems like it's exhausting for the players. Yeah.
And one thing I should mention, I mean, you know, I certainly have no idea what's going to happen with Erik ten Hag. But not only did he recognize tactically what the problem was and quickly fix it, but he also, in the first two losses, right, they got killed, right? It was terrible. They lost 4-0 Man United in the second game. And how many coaches would have been there and thrown the team under the bus, right? And he did something interesting. First of all, he wasn't messing around. He threw the team under the bus. He was like, I would have changed all 11 players. And people were like, and he said, and I would have started by changing myself, because when the team loses, I'm part of that. We all lose. And when the team wins, we win. And I effed up.
Yeah.
And that they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting tactic, right? Because you're like, you could blame the team, you could not blame the team, right? If you just blame yourself and say, which is what Pineda sometimes did early, he's like, oh, it was my fault, right? But he didn't do either of those. He didn't say it was the team's fault. He didn't say it was my fault. He said it was all of our fault.
Yeah.
Creating unity.
That seems like a good way to end this, Dave. We've talked about it all.
Well, hold on 1 second.
Oh,
is there an actual bet? Did y'all make a bet?
Did we make a bet?
No, well, so I was trying to pick.
Yeah, what was the alternate bet you wanted?
Well, the alternate bet was, and I'll even just play devil's advocate, whatever side you want to pick, Dave, because that's how I am.
I will take Man United over Arsenal, by the way. I'm not sure it's a great bet.
Okay.
As a coach or whatever, I would say I don't know enough about Ten Hag to say that's a good bet or whatever, but because I'm a Manchester United fan, I'll take it.
So we can go that bet, or we can go PSG over Man City.
Well, the problem is they may or may not face each other, and there's all the different roads.
Well, no, who makes
I'd
it
rather
further?
have
who
people,
makes it further?
Yeah, but I'd still rather have people in the same league.
All right, so
Right.
so you're going to take me on the Arsenal bet.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I would love to take, what was interesting
it's
about
your
last
team,
year's
so.
bet, it was because it was two teams, Leeds and Tottenham, and neither of which were supporters of.
And it felt a little weird putting my Arsenal jersey on that I haven't worn in a little while.
And one thing I felt strongly about, as you
see.
know, Bielsa was going to wear out his welcome. Right?
Yeah.
He just has done that every single place he's done. He's run them into the ground. And as good as Leeds were, right? They were amazing. They were about to crash. You could see that coming.
Yeah.
Or maybe you couldn't because you put them above Tottenham.
That's because, the thing is I just wanted Tottenham to lose so bad.
Yeah, they're so Spursy.
They're so Spursy. And I knew that the time, I knew it was winding down, but I just wanted that kind of craziness to just go one more year.
Well, I'll give you one more week. You can think about it. We make it better. I'll take Manchester United over Arsenal just because that's fun.
Okay.
Even though I'm not going to argue that I think, my head that's a smart.
So you are going to gift me a bottle of your new wine if I win, correct?
I'm going to give you a bottle of our new wine regardless.
So it's a win-win. All right. Perfect.
On that note, everybody gets wine on the podcast.
Well, Dave, I think we talked about it all.
We did.
Podcast listeners, sorry about the technical difficulties.
Yeah, I apologize.
But it may have been a blessing in disguise that we had to reboot, and we'll get it right next time.
We'll get it right next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.